Welcome to the CU2.0 podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the CU2.0 podcast with big new ideas about credit unions and conversations about innovative technology with credit union and fintech leaders. This podcast is brought to you by Quillo, the real-time loan syndication network for credit unions, and by your host, longtime credit union and financial technology journalist Robert McGarvey. And now, the CU2.0 podcast with Robert McGarvey.
Live from Munich, Germany on today's podcast is Dr. Marlene Wolfgruber, AI strategy lead at global automation company ABBYY. And between her advanced education at Ludwig Maximilian University in Germany, that's a school Google's AI tool Gemini says is one of Germany's best and a leading university in global rankings, and also her work for ABBYY, a global technology company specializing in intelligent document processing and linguistic software. She brings 2 decades of AI knowledge to the show. She also brings a captivating message. What especially caught our eye is this from her. Quote, financial institutions will leverage AI-powered hyper-personalization to deliver finely tuned financial products and advising services, dynamically adjusting to individual customer needs, preferences, and financial behaviors in real time. Real time. As I read that, she's saying, while today meaningful personal banking services are reserved for the highest economic strata, AI will usher in a new day where all of us, absolutely all of us, will be able to get genuinely personalized advice and suggestions that will come not via a human, but a machine, a really smart machine. And the AI advice just may be very, very good. Along the way, Wolfgruber tells us how close we are to that day of real personalization and what has to happen to get us there. And it's coming sooner than you might think. She also offers fascinating insights into the journey that have brought AI to where it is today. And also why suddenly large language models such as ChatGPT are on every lip. Certainly every lip in credit union C-suites. Oh, and while Dr. Wolfgruber has the credentials to certify her as a propeller head, she talks in a way that I can understand. That means you can too. Listen up. So we're going to talk about primarily AI and banking. And what intrigued me about the pitch was you were talking about this AI is going to enable or power an era of hyper-personalization. Mm-hmm. And it's always irritated me when my bank or credit union sends me sales pieces for things I have absolutely no interest in. I'm the wrong demographic. You should know this about me. I have no interest whatsoever. Why are you wasting your money and my time? So this is hyper mass distribution. Send it to everybody. Someone will like it. So how does AI do this, and what do financial institutions need to do to hop aboard this train?
Yeah, I think for me, it's also one of the most, let's say, interesting, exciting, and one of the trends that has the biggest potential, but also, as you pointed out, can fail, or at least until now, we couldn't really feel the benefits maybe that it can bring. And I think for me, the AI-driven personalization, there's one thing that's, about advertisement, of course, but thinking about today's banking customers, they really expect, and I would include myself, their credit unions or their banks to understand really their unique financial needs and offer tailored services according to that. And I think it's not so much about suggesting something, that's definitely something that comes with it, but more about thinking about a chatbot, for example, having more fluent, natural conversations with your clients. And I mean, large language models and AI agents are making this possible by enabling these more dynamic and responsive communication. But also, being able to analyze massive amounts of financial data and combining this, for example, with intelligent document processing, a bank or a credit union can pull key insights from different kinds of documents like loan applications, financial statements, and other types of documents. And that means they can offer more personalized loan options, more personalized, customized savings plans or tailored financial advice next to or besides the more fluent conversations and what I mentioned earlier. And I mean, the result is definitely happier members and more efficient operations. So I think that definitely has a lot of potential.
Now, in the US, and I'm 99% sure also in Germany,
Mhm.
if you have enough assets, you can go to JP Morgan Chase and get a personal banker. Now, you need to have not an immense amount of money, but maybe throw $100,000 into some Chase accounts, and you'll get a personal banker who will give you customized service.
Sure.
98%, let's say, of Chase customers don't get that because they don't have the assets or they don't choose to deposit it with Chase. But I think one of the things you're suggesting is that AI can create an affordable for the institution way to deliver something that looks like personal banking to every
Yeah.
consumer. And that's a pretty exciting phenomenon. Now, how far
Yeah.
away are we from that?
That's spot on. I think that's definitely, I mean, definitely on point what I was trying to say. And I think we're not far away. I mean, maybe just some background. So, I had the opportunity to work for a leading startup in conversational AI. And they offered a platform for building chatbots essentially, definitely also for financial institutions, leveraging generative AI. And those conversations I was talking about earlier, that are, very fluent and conversational, really, and not just like robotic and static. They like integrating this with the right tools like intelligent document processing really enables this personalized recommendation service you mentioned. And I think that's actually already available if you implement it right. Because I think the biggest risk with generative AI is, the predictability or the lack of predictability. What is it going to say, But there's also mechanisms and technologies how you can implement it that totally reduce the risk of hallucination and the potential risk that comes with it, right? Because you don't want your chatbot to say something that's, out of your policy or out of, mainly out of policy. That's definitely something you don't want the chatbot to say. So I think it's definitely in reach. Have we seen a lot of those in production that really work? I haven't, but I think it's definitely a big topic for this year, I'd say.
People always talk about hallucinations, AI hallucinations. How common do you think they are? And I ask that because I've used Google's Gemini much more than I've used ChatGPT, but I've used both. I've used the Anthropic's Claude, and I haven't seen too many. Have I seen cases where Google has come back to me with what is demonstrably, undeniably a factual error? Yes, occasionally. I don't know what source they use, but the source was plain wrong. But it's rare. I remember a few cases because it's so rare.
Fortunately, it's not something that happens on a regular basis. And I think it's also getting probably reduced over time. But still, I think in those critical scenarios, and I think there were like some almost funny examples from last year where one of the German logistic companies, DPD, they had their chatbot. I don't know if you heard about this case, and the chatbot was asked by a customer, "Hey, write a poem that criticizes DPD or that like says something bad about," and the chatbot did it, right? So like those types of things. I mean, it's not necessarily hallucination, but it goes in a direction, it derails from
Oh,
the
okay.
desired conversation. Yeah,
What you're touching on is
yeah,
in America and I'm sure in Germany too, financial institutions are really extremely rule bound. They like to play within the lanes. They hate
yeah,
crossing the lanes. So if a chatbot comes back to a customer and said, "Hey, fool, you can't do that,"
yeah.
American Banker Credit Union would say, "You can't talk like that." Well, yes, you can. And it's not that big a deal. It's To me, to the
Yeah,
institution, it would be a very big deal.
definitely. I mean, this is definitely you don't want, to happen as a financial institution. And I think in Germany as well as in the US, it's definitely a no-go. And I mean, it would be the same as your employer would, say something like that to a customer. You would train your, employers to say certain things, you would train them on a process, on what steps need to be fulfilled, when you talk to a customer and what kinds of topics you need to cover when you have a conversation. In the same way you want, your AI assistants to interact with customers, except, there should be also space for variations. And, maybe the customer doesn't want to follow your path of conversations inherently, have no strict path. They always go derail or, have some wie sagt man da, deroutes or, go in a different direction and then come back to the original topic. So that's fine. And as long as it's in a safe space, let's say, and they don't say anything inappropriate, I think that's definitely okay. And I think, and I think you had this in one of your recent podcasts episodes talking about the quality of data or the cleanliness or clean is this a word, cleanliness, the clean
Cleanliness.
the cleanliness of
Yes.
data definitely plays a role, and ensuring that the data you're working with is clean and accurate definitely reduces the risk of, exposing customers to any potential wrong, misinformation or saying something wrong, providing, wrong advice and those types of things. I think that's definitely base for everything. Cleanliness of data.
Yeah, German, I think, is more consistent pronunciation. In English, we like to pronounce the same set of letters differently, just to confuse people and make it very hard to learn the language. It's, but you're doing great.
Thank you.
It's I studied German for 3 years in college, and that was a very long time ago. And if you say anything to me in German, probably all I can do is respond in a curse because I think that's all I remember. So let's not go there. So what does an institution have to do to try to deliver this hyper personalized AI experience? I mean, I think the whole idea is just I think I hadn't, no one's talked to me about this before, but I think you're absolutely right that this is a big opportunity. And,
Mhm.
and I'm not talking with any institution that is telling me they're doing this, but
Mhm.
I'm not talking with the JP Morgan Chases of the world, whom I'm sure are doing
Mhm.
it or trying to do it. But smaller institutions, I'm not hearing that from them. So what do they
Yeah.
need to do?
I think that's also interesting to hear, that you're saying that, because I can actually totally make sense out of this, because of course it's not, I mean, it really depends on the size and definitely, the company goals, and customer satisfaction could be one major goal, but it's not the one and only goal, right? And the hyper personalization would be definitely playing into or kind of contributing to the customer satisfaction rates and loyalty and stuff like that. So if this is your focus, you should definitely be investing into this. And I think but this is not the only one, like I said. I think, but everything, whatever the goal is, if it's the customer satisfaction or kind of maximizing return on investment, delivering great service, then it's always, or it should always start with the clear objectives, especially with AI implementations. Like I said, whether it's improving customer service or automating document heavy processes or enhancing security, because those are probably equally important. So it would always start with the why, clearly defining the objectives, and then just aligning those AI investments with the business priorities. And then second, leverage low risk but high impact pilots. But because I think whatever you do with AI, it definitely, like I said, should start with the why and then continue with, a manageable pilot project that can deliver quick results without the risks, because we don't want, companies to just, launch a chatbot, customer chatbot, and then they have bigger damage than benefits. And for example, at ABBYY, we often help clients testing intelligent document processing solutions in their key workflows before scaling organization-wide. And then another very important factor is the focus on education and buy-in from everyone. Because I think, if leadership and operational teams are not fully in the picture of how AI works and its benefits, it probably doesn't really, or it's probably not really set up for success, the whole AI initiative, either if it's the personalization thing or something else. They just need to understand, okay, what is it capable of? What are realistic goals and outcomes we can expect from this? So kind of driving, the right culture and supporting it from within, from every stakeholder maybe in the project.
Now, most credit unions that I know of in the US, they would pilot a program, a project like this with employees first.
Mm-hmm.
And if it messes up terribly, there's essentially no consequences for that.
Yeah.
And then only secondarily they start to roll it out to usually smallish groups of customers or members. And I view that sort of piloting as pretty smart. Let the employees, a select group of employees do it, and then roll it out to a bigger group of employees. And somewhere along the line, if there are major problems, you're going to see them before you debut it to the public.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Definitely. And I think also maybe you've seen this as well, is especially with the generative AI technology, is first testing this, like you said, internally. And I think over the last year, 2024, there were lots of those, testing projects or test projects which were mostly around productivity, employee productivity, or maybe even, an internal service chatbot or something like that, where they, testing what it's capable of before kind of letting it into the wild and seeing. And I'm really excited to see, how many of those internal test projects come to life this year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a place like Chase
Mm-hmm.
probably kills a lot of projects before they go out to the public. Smaller institutions don't have that same tolerance for failure, strangely enough. Chase realizes, what the heck? So we spent 10 million bucks on this. That's lunch money. Let's move on. It's
Yeah.
next project.
Yeah, true. I mean, yeah, more tolerance for, those types of, oh yeah, okay, didn't work out. Let's, try something else.
Tell me a first easy thing to try to offer via AI personalization.
So I think that personalization is such a big word, right? And for you just mentioned earlier that, personalized advertisement, for example, or, stuff that you get recommended and you're not interested in. For me, personalization would mean, as soon as I enter or engage with a company or with an institution, I want to feel, and if I do this with the digital channels, then I still want to feel that as if they would, really respond to me and not just someone. And this means they need to remember who I am. So if I already engaged with them via, I don't know, email, and now I'm using a different channel, then I want them to recognize me on this other channel. I think this already is the start of personalization. That means kind of streamlining internally the input channels. And that's something, I mean, I know this is something companies or enterprises are starting to do some years ago already, but we are still not there. So there's still some work to do, kind of streamlining the inputs from customers, kind of having a central data storage where you kind of bring everything together. And then if someone engages with you, they don't have to enter their data several times, and because that feels cumbersome, right? If you engage with the company or a client or you're a member, you want to be recognized. That will be my starting point. Let's say they should recognize me if I engage with them and not ask me for my, personal details over and over again. Whatever I provide to them, they should be, kind of do a matching or whatever in order to, kind of identify who I am, and then come back to me with grade, whatever. Either it's, you have to log in somewhere, then it's easy, right? Because then you're kind of recognized, you have your account, but if you're engaging and they only have your name, it should be also possible to kind of pull your data, pull your file, pull your, all the details they have. And then, it's also easier for them to engage with you in a more meaningful and efficient way as well, because the whole interaction is more seamless, more smooth. They don't have to ask for the same stuff over and over again, if that makes sense.
Now, how long have you been working in AI?
Working over a decade, and started 20 years ago. So I studied computational linguistics back when it was just something not everyone would know what it is.
Right.
So natural language processing was not something, everyone was like, yeah, sure, I know what it is. I had to explain this several times back then. And also back then I had no clue that it's gonna be the, hot topic in some years later, as it is now. So yeah, around 20
And
years.
what has lit a match under AI in the last 2 years, for instance? I mean, people have been doing AI, chatbots, for instance, fairly, and by my standards or by today's standards, fairly primitive AI at the time. But they've been doing it for at least 10 years. But now, suddenly, everybody wants to talk about AI. Absolutely everybody. You'll walk into a bar in Munich, you'll try to order a beer. People ask you about AI. I just want a beer. No, tell me about
Yeah.
AI. So,
Yeah.
why? And what's the match that lit this thing?
I probably have to say it was, ChatGPT. The fact that now suddenly everyone sees and can also kind of process the capabilities of AI because they're using it for something they're doing on a daily basis. Like it actually, and I have to tell you a story because this is how I explain to myself, how it got this, popularity. Because if I remember, 10 years ago, was it 10 years or maybe even 15 years ago, my professor would say, yeah, maybe, at some point, or I predict, at some point we will, interact or kind of ask questions in natural language, to a search engine, and then we get an answer. And we were like, oh, really? Yeah, that would be great, and not just typing in keywords that need to appear on the website I'm looking for in order to get, the result I'm looking for. But it's more like, yeah, asking these natural language questions that we are now with ChatGPT. And I think this has been the goal ever since, right? Machines and humans, how can they interact? So it's more human-like because it's we're not really interacting with, or actually the machines don't understand natural language, and that has been always the problem. Because natural language is so complex and so unpredictable, this feels like the next milestone. Now we are capable of, or at least we feel we can communicate with a machine in natural language, even though the machine still doesn't understand anything, by the way. It's just, based on statistics. It's just kind of putting the most likely word or token next to next to each other. It's not really understanding us. It's just, based on training data, it's just, producing output. But for us, it feels like, wow, now we can communicate. And I think that's what lit the match in order to kind of repeating your phrase for everyone to be like, wow, okay, now it's there. Now finally we can talk with machines and it can, talk back to us.
You go back 25 years, and Google was best if you knew how to do Boolean search.
Yeah.
They discontinued that, 10 or 15 years ago. Uh, Now we're entering a period where people won't even do the searches. They'll just ask a friendly little question like you do with ChatGPT, and the machine will answer you. But I get what you're saying. You're saying that to this point, the machine still doesn't think, and
Yeah.
uh, and people do think. Um, but you know better than I do that there are people working in computer science who are pretty sure that they're going to create thinking machines pretty soon. Now, you might
Yeah. I
disagree
mean,
with them. I don't know. I haven't thought about it enough to have an opinion. But I
yeah.
know there are people in that world who are really pretty sure that the Matrix is here and that they're about to introduce the machines.
Yeah, you could definitely do a whole podcast episode about this, probably. Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't scare me. I mean, I think now I think two of the things that have happened that have really lit a match under AI today is first of all, when Google released a lot of the intellectual property that they owned on generative AI and large language models. Secondly, giant, powerful computer chips. Thirdly, an unbelievable hemorrhage of money. Anthropic is about to be valued at $60 billion. Do they have any revenues? Maybe not. it's it's
Yeah.
at 60 billion. That's beginning to get a big number. I mean,
It's wild. Yeah. It's crazy. There's so much to come. And I think, I mean, even starting the year, there's new things, coming up beyond, AI agents and RAG and everything. There's like, and I've probably never seen the whole, I'm not talking to everyone, obviously, but the people I talk to, and they really, some of them are completely, technical, some of them are very business focused. But no matter, who I talk to, they all seem to be in this constant, like, oh my God, have you seen this? Have you read about this? And here, and what about that? And even analysts sometimes are very like, oh, okay, let's kind of make sense out of all of this and kind of wait until we, come to a point where everything has cleared a little bit and then we can, continue to work and or start using the technology instead of just trying and testing and figuring it out. I mean, this year there's definitely a chance that we're gonna come into a phase where we see the first things in production and people have, had their testing phases. Also, as you mentioned, the bigger corporations which invested maybe more money, they definitely, gonna start with their first, in production implementations. But yeah, maybe, there is a next invention or technology coming up that's disrupting. But I mean that's for disruptive technologies. I think that's enough for for now, for me at least. Now
I
it's
think
really on to helping organizations and institutions to take what's there and kind of make sense of it and also identify what's right for them, right? Because not every technology, even though it's great, is for every use case. So there are definitely use cases where generative AI makes a lot of sense. And then there's, use cases where extractive AI makes sense. And but you just have to, apply what's best for the case and for the goals you have.
now what's the difference between those two types of AI, extractive and generative?
The extractive is, let's use an example, taking a document and extracting data from it. Like it's more the information retrieval or information extraction type of AI. And then there is the generative AI, which is, as the name says, based on training data, generating new content. And by the way, there was, because you were also asking about hallucinations earlier, I don't remember exactly who was it that said that actually everything an LLM produces is an hallucination. So it's not that, oh, just because you don't like the output, it's hallucinated, or it hallucinated, but everything it does, it's hallucination because it's not aware of what it says, because it's not knowing that what it produced or generated is correct, right? It's more like, oh, this is the most likely thing to say based on your question. I found that statement, or that
That's interesting. It
very
is a
interesting. Yeah.
mathematical best guess.
Yeah.
It's, the machine has looked at 50 opinions about this topic, and 47 of them say this, so we're going to roll with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The pace of adoption of LLM AI seems to be astonishing. Do you think something else is going to come down the line that disrupts that?
Applying large language models with, or in combination with AI or agentic applications, or building LLM agents, if you will, is that, I mean, it's not something that's not there yet. But I think this is definitely going to evolve. Question is, again, when do you need it? Is it because they will make autonomous decisions, or this is actually what they're, or the intention for those AI agents? Because if you have a very straightforward process where you know what should happen, or where every step can be defined or predefined, you don't necessarily need an agent like a human, being able to react to unpredictable things, or unforeseen things. So beyond LLMs, I mean, like I said, I hope first everything we've seen this or last year now comes into real applications, or now comes really into production. That for me would be or like not a revolution, but that would be the next cool thing, right?
So you're optimistic that AI is going to change how we bank. Really, it's about time. I mean, one of the big forces that I hear from people is that banking customers don't want to do it themselves. They want the institution to do it for them. I'll give you a case in point. When I grew up, you had to keep what was called a check register. It was a little booklet. You wrote down your checks, kept track of your balances. As the only time you got your balance was once a month, you get a statement in the mail. Now, anytime I haven't kept a check register in 15 years, 20 years, I don't know, a long time. So anytime I want to see what my balance is, I go online. Boom, there it is. It's more accurate than my check register would be anyway. So, so they're doing it for me, which I really appreciate. Saves me trying to decipher my bad handwriting. Do you think that institutions are going to use AI to do a lot more for me?
Definitely. Because I mean, there's so much. I really would have to, select a few things.
Oh, I'll give you another case in point. Nowadays, I have most of my credit cards set up where they self pay. It's do you want to pay the minimum amount? And you want to pay off the balance? What do you want? What day do you want to pay that on? And I always say the day it's due and pay it all, so I don't have to think about it. It's wonderful. Yeah, I love
Mm.
this. I don't have to think.
I mean, yeah, the take that kind of unburden the customers, with that type of stuff that's not really, of any value for them. I think that's definitely all those, scenarios where you would have to think, as you said, or take care of something that should be automated. And I mean, from an institutional point of view, like shifting away a little bit from what is good for the customers, but eventually also benefits the customers. But what, institutions can automate with AI definitely, is those types of things like, okay, recognizing patterns, kind of deciding about loan applications, recommending stuff, recommending, I was mentioning this earlier, like the savings plans and stuff like that. That will be definitely, beneficial for the institution itself, because they don't have to think about that stuff. What can they recommend to their customers? And on the customer side, it also is beneficial because as soon as what the institution is recommending to me really makes sense for my situation, my personal financial situation, then it's definitely something worth thinking about. Versus, just getting random, recommendations here. Like everyone gets this. Hey, we're sending out letters. Have you thought about this? Do you want a credit? Blah, blah, blah. If this would be more, tailored to what the situation I'm in, and like I said, my financial status and stuff like that, then, it's also more likely that I want to do it, that I want to get this credit, or that I want to, start a savings plan or stuff like that. Yeah, so I think there's definitely on both sides the potential to automate and to, make things smoother, make things more reasonable for both sides with AI.
Before we go, think hard about how you can help support this podcast so we can do more interviews with more thoughtful leaders in the credit union world. What we're trying to figure out here in these podcasts is what's next for credit unions. What can they do to really, really, really make a difference in the financial scene? Can't all be mega banks, can it? It's my hope it won't all be mega banks. It'll always be a place for credit unions. That's what we're discussing here. So figure out how you can help. Get in touch with me. This is rjmcgarvey@gmail.com. Robert McGarvey again. That's rjmcgarvey@gmail.com. Get in touch. We'll figure out a way that you can help. We need your support. We want your support. We thank you for your support. The CU2.0 podcast.